A lot of big names are pushing for breach reporting rules and improved oversight. Silver Sparrow is still around, and can people really figure out what you're typing by watching you on Zoom? Well, these are some of the stories that we have brought you, my colleagues and I, that is, on the daily edition of the Cybersecurity Headlines podcast. And I'm glad that I don't have to answer any further because we have a chance to hear from someone who knows a lot better. This is our guest for today, some insight and opinion and some expertise from our guest, Naomi Buckwalter, who is Director of Information Security and IT at Beam Technologies. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here.
Well, it's always a fascinating thing to watch these, and I just want to remind everyone as we get started here that our sponsor for this show is PlexTrack, and I'll be speaking a little bit more about them coming up. And also, if you are joining us live, feel free to join us also on Crowdcast, where you can share some comments and perhaps even bring them into the show. So, Naomi, we've got a few things to cover here in 20 minutes. But first off, Microsoft and FireEye have been pushing for breach reporting rules to the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. Microsoft President Brad Smith is pushing for disclosure obligation, and FireEye CEO Kevin Mandia is looking for a federal disclosure program based mostly on what's happened with SolarWinds. So is this viable, or are we going to get a lot of pushback from the private sector?
So this is a great idea, Steve, in theory, but companies just aren't willing to share their dirty secrets with the rest of the world, right? FireEye did this the right way, though. They put community first and knew that they would be dealing with negative PR and a PR nightmare, but they did it anyway. But thanks to FireEye, we got IOCs, TTPs, and kill chain much, much faster than CISA would have put out there. So props to them. And it still frustrates me to think that FireEye didn't get the credit that they deserved for discovering this attack.
That's a very good point. Yes, it's still kind of like the COVID for the cybersecurity world, that it's ongoing and no one's had a chance to stop and look at the heroes here. But you're absolutely right. They should be getting a lot more kudos for bringing it to the surface in time. I do believe we had noted in a previous show that someone had said that if this hadn't happened, we may still be, again, laboring under the delusion of the unawareness that it was actually happening in the background. So
That's right.
fantastic. All right, so moving on to the next story then. We got the U.S. Federal Reserve. There's a couple of government stories this week that are big. I mean, the U.S. Federal Reserve got hit with a massive IT outage. This has impacted its ability to make wire transfers and ACH transactions and apparently almost every other electronic service they possess. They have called this an operational error, but my question to you, Naomi, is this kind of like a single point of failure situation, kind of like what happened in Texas with the power grid? I know it's a different mechanics, but still, is this the kind of thing we're looking at?
Yeah, I would agree there. It does feel like a single point of failure, and it does appear to be operational and an operational error, but it's curious to me why it's taking the Fed so long to resume normal business operations. A more cynical person like me might say that the Fed is covering up a larger conspiracy, and I'm almost inclined to believe them. We just don't have the level of transparency in our government to make a call either way.
And now, is that a security issue? Is that why they want to keep things under wraps, or do you think perhaps it's as a matter of paddling as fast as they can to keep up without any bad optics?
It might be. It could be any one of those options. Maybe it is a security incident and they want to cover it up.
Ooh, yeah. Well, that means stay tuned because maybe we'll see some more of this. So we don't want to see more, but it does seem at this era where so much of the types of things we're seeing, not just simply with solar winds, but so many other areas where the government is involved, that perhaps being a little bit more open as to their progress might be helpful. But this is where we're living. This is what we're living in right now.
That's right.
So going to a continued theme then with regards to perhaps sleeping dogs lying, we've got Silver Sparrow, which is a malware that's been found on 30,000 Macs. And the security experts have yet apparently to notice what or discover what its payload is, what its intentions are. So it seems to be lying dormant until there's some kind of command comes along. So what's your thought? What should CISOs do about things like this?
Oh my gosh, this malware, Silver Sparrow, is completely fascinating. Props to the researchers Wes Hurd and Jason Killam at Red Canary for discovering this before a malicious payload could be delivered and executed. Interesting also, though, is the choice by the malware author or authors to use the AWS S3 infrastructure as a method of file distribution. It's kind of genius, seeing that AWS traffic looks normal on any given network and is much harder to detect and block. So
Okay, so the genius action here is kind of hiding in plain sight. Is that it?
yeah, it is. I don't know a lot of tools out there that would do a great job filtering out for this noise,
Well, I
especially
guess
if there's no payload.
right. So you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're looking for.
Hmm.
I mean, we have these conversations quite a lot in terms of vulnerability assessments and just being proactive in defending any organization or setup. That if you don't know that something is there or you don't know what its intentions are, it's very hard to justify the budget to search for it. But I guess this kind of once again is a kind of a slippery slope thing. If there's Silver Sparrow sitting around, is it possible, is it viable to bring this kind of topic conversation up to senior leaders to say there may be more Silver Sparrows fluttering about?
I wouldn't suggest that anyone do. The threat is there, but there was no exploit. You can always scare your C-level folks, but I would rather play a little on the cautious side and just say, hey, we are tracking the Silver Sparrow malware, and you can either say that we are affected or we're not, and we're on top of it. That's what the business executives want to hear, that you are on
Okay.
top of that.
Okay, very cool. That's fantastic. So SolarWinds hackers, since we're sort of kind of on this topic, it's again the story that never goes away. Microsoft said on Thursday that it has concluded its probe into the SolarWinds hack, and it's a moment of reckoning, furthering the need once again to be proactive in embracing a zero trust mentality. Okay, is it too soon for them or anybody to declare this probe to be done?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think it's just starting to peel back the different layers of the onion. And I've said this before in other contexts. The Solar Winds was just plain old espionage. If you recall back in 2015 with the OPM breach, former CIA Director Michael Hayden called it honorable espionage. Nation state actors are just doing this to each other on a daily basis, including the United States. But that does it make it honorable? I don't think so. Not anymore, because I think our governments are starting to realize that breaches like this really have a negative effect on our communities and private lives. So it's time for our governments to play hardball, in my opinion.
Okay, good statement. Thank you very much. We're going to take a moment here just to acknowledge our sponsor for today's episode. And our sponsor this week is PlexTrack. PlexTrack is a powerful yet simple cybersecurity platform that centralizes all security assessments, pen test reports, audit findings, and vulnerabilities. PlexTrack transforms the risk management lifecycle, allowing security professionals to generate better reports faster, aggregate and visualize analytics, and collaborate on remediation in real time. So check out plextrack.com/CISO series to learn why PlexTrack is the perfect platform for CISOs. And you can probably see here it's plextrac.com/CISO series. So, Naomi, we are back and looking at our next story. Jones Day was an interesting one because this was a hack that seemed to have been minimized by Jones Day by saying this was a third-party hack, not them, the breach, the documents were lost. But it's now that organizations are feeling more of the impact of the Accellion exploit. There are more people, more organizations, Washington State Auditor's Office, the Unemployment Office, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, and the Singapore telco Singtel. So is this something that we should be looking at? They're saying that the fix will be in by April the 30th. But my concern, I think, really is about announcing a time announcement like that. I mean, that's a long time away. That's 2 months away, or a month. It's 2 months away. Is that a good idea to announce that kind of deadline or completion date?
I don't think so. I don't think it's really the date that's the issue. I think it's honestly it's taking them a long time. But the customers now have to go into security incident response mode and shut off any of the Accellion file transfer servers and software. So just the fallout for the customers is difficult. But this one's bad. I will say really up there with the other breaches. We're going to see the fallout from this for quite a while, especially in regards to attempts at fraud and extortion. And the shame here is that it just won't be those 50 customers that you mentioned that are affected.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the customers of those customers and their
Yeah.
families that will really hurt from this.
Yeah, and it may be that this is going to grow into the same kind of fame as SolarWinds was. I'm just wondering, from a strategic standpoint, from your side, when they say it's going to be fixed by April 30th, I mean, yeah, I can see how that might be seen as giving some comforts to the customers, but does that not also give some advantage to the bad people by? It's kind of like being an army in a country and saying we're going to leave at the end of this month. It gives
Yeah.
people a sense of what they can do and meter out their patience.
Yeah, that's right. I think the attackers know what they're doing, so I don't think a date is going to change their plan. But now they know that they're on the company's on top of trying to fix this now. So
No.
yeah, maybe it does rush there, but I don't think it will.
Okay, well, that's good. So it seems that there's a lot of this going on. We've got another one of the stories we brought this week is that a study that shows that most firms now are fearing nation state attacks more so than ever. 80% of 500 executive level respondents to this research said that. They are afraid of this. They want their respective governments in their respective countries, to play a bigger role in meeting these challenges. And they also assessed that there is not enough being done on a country level to establish security on the nation state level. Now, of course, we're looking at the nation state attacks, we're looking at big budgets, huge resources. But once again, is this something that governments should play a larger role in, or is that, again, a dangerous path for them to follow?
We're at the point now that I would say yes. I'll repeat what I said earlier. We used to just call this espionage, Steve, and nowadays it's just hitting a little too close to home. And yes, I do agree with the survey respondents. I do think our government should play a bigger role here to protect their citizens, and this is coming to affect a lot of families.
Okay, so would this be a federal level, or is this something that should be disseminated through various levels of management? I mean, what would be the strategy for a country like the United States that's got numerous levels of management and oversight to take a more proactive role in nation states? I mean, I know the U.S. does, of course, but as a role model, perhaps for other countries who are looking to learn how to do this, would you say that you can consolidate this kind of power and wisdom at the top, or should it be spread out in some way from the government side?
Well, I can see it working in a couple different ways, but I almost guarantee if we just had a truce, like a plain old truce, this is really cyber warfare. And I don't know if we could even do this. I'm not a politician by any means, but I would say it could work. I mean, truces have worked in the past. So if we could find out that way, I think a diplomatic solution might be the easiest.
Okay, well, I guess it's a live and learn kind of approach, but it's always fascinating to watch what the bad guys are up to in terms of the sheer genius of the ways that they can worm their way in here. So that leads us to one of the other headlines that we are covering tomorrow, I believe, in tomorrow's newscast. That President Biden is now ordering security review of the supply chain security. This is a direct response, of course, to SolarWinds, and he is looking to address the shortages of critical imported components such as batteries and pharmaceuticals, and to wean the country off semiconductors manufactured overseas, and to review the security of the information and communications sector. So this is again a very big undertaking, and no moment too soon. But we have sort of said this a couple of times, but it just seems to be a refrain in so many of these areas, especially with SolarWinds hovering over everything that we're doing. Is this now a new era that we're in terms of an organized approach to large-scale security, proactive supply chain security? What is your thought about how this might again be deployed down through to individual companies and organizations?
Well, I think this is a great start, but I do want to see legislation being passed through Congress, not just action through executive orders. And we
Hmm.
need this enacted through all levels of government, not just at the federal level. So, yes, I do agree with what Biden is doing, but I feel like there would be a better solution, and that's going through Congress for legislation.
Okay, so this should not stop at the executive order, but actually become law,
Correct.
become something with teeth.
Absolutely.
Um, Fully agreed. Okay, well, to get away from supply chains and solar winds and government for a moment, one of my particular personal favorites is always about blockchain. And this is a story that I think is fascinating because, from my perspective as a journalist and as someone who just looks at the human side of errors that happen in cybersecurity, it's always amazing to see again what the bad guys are able to do, given that they're looking at every instance, every opportunity to wheedle their way in somehow. So now we've got the Bitcoin blockchain that's helping a botnet stopping a botnet, one of their own botnets, from being taken down. And essentially, this is because they have the server that they're using to fall back on is being locked into one of these blocks inside the blockchain. So it becomes immutable, it cannot be removed, changed, audited, or anything of that nature. So they have sealed themselves in for posterity to keep one anchor to their functionality. So first of all, I've got two questions for you. So first of all, what do you think about that? Are you familiar with, how blockchain is working in terms of good and bad? What do you think about this particular action?
Oh, I'm only smiling, Steve, because I think this is absolutely genius. Our adversaries are extremely clever, and I have to admit, I admire their abilities here just to switch it up on us. It reminds me of when DNS was just starting to be used as a C2C back in the day, I think around 2011, 2012, I believe. And this really does have the same feel to it. Super clever.
It really is, because this is an area that poses a huge amount of problems, especially for legislators and people like that who don't quite get what blockchain or Bitcoin is, or even if there's a difference between them, which of course there is. Uh, one is a product, one is an operating system, essentially, if you want to put it that way. So we've got a really interesting novel approach that once again goes beyond, let's say, the collective knowledge and awareness of those who make the decisions. So related question perhaps, but currently, is blockchain posing a problem for CISOs? Is it again a new animal, or do you like what it presents as a potential for the future?
I don't see any real security issues or vulnerabilities with blockchain. Obviously, there are with the different implementations of blockchain, but in general, nothing right now. I think from a privacy perspective, it will produce some interesting um, situations where CISOs now have to pay attention to. But for now, we are just seeing what kind of technology can come out of blockchain.
Yeah.
Keep wanting to say Bitcoin, but really, there's not a great solution. It's a technology without it's a solution without a problem right now.
Yes, I have heard that before. Absolutely, it's well ahead of its time, perhaps, but I do think we're going to see a lot more of it as we're going along. So wait a minute, what's that sound? My modem is telling me that we have to move into the lightning round because we're getting close to the end of our time here. We've got two questions left, so it's not that bad. I can just turn my modem off here. It's high tech 14.4. I just got it recently. So here's an interesting one that again takes us a little bit out of the realm of the standard, but studies have shown experts are finding a way to say that they can find out what you are typing during a video call without seeing your keys, obviously, by basically assessing on a basis of knowledge of keystroke connections and the way in which you move your arms when you type. Now, they can infer what you're saying. Uh, the report concluded by saying that people who do hunt and peck typing when they have to look to see what they're doing, or people who are wearing sleeveless clothes when they're doing it, so there's more arms showing, are at greater risk. And for some reason, those who use Logitech cameras, I can't quite get that. But this is to me not a novelty story. This is something that has I would say, some sort of sinister backdrop to it in terms of potential espionage opportunities. And it reminds me of the one about reading what your Alexa is saying by shining a laser on it. You can read or influence your Alexa by shining lasers. These again are brilliant ways people are finding to hack. So do you think this is something to be concerned about, or would you want to put it into the novelty category?
It's definitely not. I would say it's definitely not a problem. I do want to just say one thing quickly. I just can't wait till this pandemic is over and we have face to face meetings. No more Zoom. I
No
am
more
over
Zoom.
it. Time to get back into the real world. I think a lot of listeners feel the same way.
It is quite fascinating to see what it is that people miss now that they're not actually at work. So all the things they used to hate in terms of the people that, going to work, or maybe some of the people around them, that physical presence, not just simply the formal activities of being on a Zoom meeting, but the physical presence of other people around is definitely proving to be a real hole in people's lives right now. So I agree. I think you'll see that a majority of people will opt to go back to the workplace rather than doing the work from home thing, but not all. I think perhaps we're going to get a 25-75 breakdown when this is over, hopefully by later this year. What do you think? What's your percentage? What do you think it'll break
Oh,
down
I
to?
think it'll be 50-50. Some people
Yeah.
will just want to be back and sometimes stay home and work.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, we've been in the world's biggest sort of forced experiment to find out how to work it. So, yeah, that would be great. 50-50 would be very interesting. So, okay, we've come to the end of our time here together. So, I just wanted to ask you what you would think of the stories we've covered here. did you have a favorite? Was there anything that sort of, you said this is a really great story, either a thumbs up, positive story, even if it's couched in a bad news story, or another eye roll for our business?
Well, the biggest eye roll is the video call one. It's not that difficult to do to try to guess what somebody's typing because you have context. It's just another way of social engineering. The one that I'm most impressed with is the blockchain exploit. There, that was really very, very clever.
Very cool. Yes, indeed. Well, this has been wonderful. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And so I just want to say, as we conclude here, I just want to say, Naomi Buckwalter, thank you very much. You are the Director of Information Security and IT at Beam Technologies. Where can people find you? Is it okay for them to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Oh, absolutely. LinkedIn, Naomi Buckwalter is my profile name, and then on Twitter, I'm sorry, at I Need More Cyber.
I love that. I love that handle. That is fantastic. So, once again, thank you so much for leaping into the fray and being with us today and sharing your wisdom. Really appreciate it. So, hopefully, we'll see you again sometime soon. So, thank you. Take care, and we'll see you again.
Thank
And as for the rest of us here, just a quick closure. We've got our Friday video chat coming up, and the topic is going to be hacking fraud with a number of great experts. And again, just a great place to be. Thank you to our sponsor PlexTrack for bringing the show here to today. And of course, remember, if you like our cybersecurity headlines we can review, think about also joining us every day for our cybersecurity headlines short podcast during the week, every weekday. I will be back next week. And until then, I'm Steve Prentice. Stay safe, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.